Throughout all of high school and college freshman year, there is a silent killer: judgment. As a high school junior, I ate Judgement cereal for breakfast, with oat milk, of course, and it fueled me in a lot of ways. It fueled me to be the most shredded I've ever been in my life by losing 30 pounds. It fueled me to become valedictorian of my high school by playing the school game. And it fueled me to collect friends like Pokemon cards when I first came to Cornell University as a freshman. While it helped me get where I am, it stopped me from getting where I wanted to be. Because true success, happiness, and love do not come from external accolades, but rather from internal roots. And yet, our judgments keep us believing that those things are right around the corner. Astoundingly, in my 50+ conversations with Cornell University freshmen, I've noticed something fascinating. Most students don't notice how much judgment they're actually doing. Not only do they not notice, they actively use judgments as fuel for success and for self-improvement. And it does not have to be this way. Over the last 6 years, I've explored the fields of self-improvement, of self-actualization, and of spirituality in depth, partly to explore this concept of judgment. I've done that through creating 700+ YouTube videos, articles, and podcasts on the psychology of human development and judgment. I've taught hundreds of college students and adults through Cornell Outdoor Education, my education classes, and 6 self-made workshops and courses. I've worked with the #1 gamification company in the world, where I've learned to understand motivation and its root in judgment at the Octalysis Group. And I've also read hundreds of books on this topic, like The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz, and An Introduction to Integral Theory by Ken Wilber, among many others. So I've learned a lot about judgment. And in this video, I want to explore what judgment actually is, the problems that it creates in college, why we even judge, and how we can create a healthier relationship to judgment. So let's boogie. What is judgment, and why is it so bad? Judgment is simply labeling reality as good or bad, and then wishing it was different. It's basically YouTube short comments, but for the universe. And on its own, this is not hindering. It's when we absolutize these judgments and then blend with them that it becomes a problem. In other words, when we attach to our judgments. This creates 3 problems. Firstly, we keep ourselves from true happiness, success, and love. You've probably noticed a peculiar thing in your own journey throughout freshman year so far, which is even when we get the good things we want, it never seems to be enough. 1A is fantastic, but make sure you keep that A train going. Feeling positive emotions? Well, it's not going to last forever. One new friendship? It's only going to keep going if you continue to see that person and keep the relationship up. So, like running on a treadmill to reach the horizons, our judgments keep us from ever actually attaining true success, happiness, and love. It never does. The problem is that we're seeking success, happiness, and love externally rather than internally. And that's because our external world is a mirror of our internal one. And without internal roots in success, happiness, and love, we'll never have that embodied externally. It doesn't matter how many good grades we get, how many good experiences we have, how many friendships we make. It will never be enough without internal fulfillment. I dive a lot more into this exact topic in my happiness video up above if you want to check out exactly how that relates to happiness in particular. So here's the thing. Reality in the absolute perspective, is not good or bad. It just is. You are imagining the judgment onto reality. Nowhere is it written in the fabric of the universe that getting a B plus on an assignment will doom you to eternal hellfire. Right? Neither is it written in the fabric of the universe that a deep conversation with a friend is going to fulfill you. So, of course, this doesn't mean that judgments don't have value or that we can't have opinions or that we shouldn't strive for external things. Judgment holds immense practical value. It's probably what got you into an elite college in the first place. The problem is when we attach to these judgments, when we absolutize them, when we blend with them. That's when we take a relative evaluation that we have towards college and we mistake it for objective reality. The wisdom is not in getting rid of judgment, because unless you're some Buddhist monk and you're floating as you're watching this video right now, probably not going to be able to do that. I have not been able to do that either. The wisdom is in learning to come to your judgments with compassion, to understand the relativeness of them, not as objective evaluations of reality, but rather as indications of mirrors to yourself. You strive for external things with a rootedness in your internal fulfillment, knowing that the external things are never going to fulfill you eternally. And we're going to talk more about how to do this in the action items section at the end. But for now, a little bit of a teaser. The importance of this internal rootedness is particularly something that we should emphasize, because it's really important when it comes to the second problem that judgment creates, which is judging others is actually judging ourselves. For example, that person isn't kind enough. That person is procrastinating too much. They should work harder. They aren't treating their health with enough respect. When I was a freshman, I used to slingshot tens, if not hundreds, of these sort of egoic statements, these micro judgments, without even realizing it. And of course, I then mistook these micro judgments as aspects inherent of reality. And because they were judgments against others, I felt that they were even more valid than judgments against myself. What I didn't realize, and what we don't realize, is that judgments against others are actually judgments against ourselves as well. We think others are exactly that, others. But what we don't realize is that we are imagining this self-othering on reality. Our self is inextricably linked with others because it's our self that is making the judgment of other in the first place. So in this sense, all of our other judgments are actually self-judgments. Like, for example, judging someone else as procrastinating too much could be us judging ourselves for procrastinating too much. Or on the opposite level, judging ourselves for working too hard and we're trying to validate it. Judging others for their health tendencies could be us judging ourselves for our own bad health tendencies, or projecting our rigor and overvaluing of health onto others. In all cases, we lose. Because when we upwardly judge, we judge someone as better than us, it sets impossible standards because that person has different genetics, different experiences, different relationships, different skills, different natural talents. And therefore, it's impossible for us to actually make a fair comparison between us and them. When we downwardly judge, when we judge someone as worse than us in something, we create a negative relationship to how it is that we see others. For example, I used to judge others all the time for not focusing as much as me. And that's because every day I would get up and I'd do deep work for like 5 hours straight, no distractions. And meanwhile, students around me would seem to struggle to do work for even 5 minutes, checking their phone every -3 seconds. And this backfired on me really hard because when I experienced my first bout of real depressive loneliness after losing my first freshman friend group, my own work habits plummeted. And because I was making all of those judgments against others, I started judging myself super harshly in turn. So again, the problem is not having judgments against others. The problem is attaching to those judgments, seeing them as objective aspects of the person rather than potentially mirrors of yourself. And it's in this mirroring of self that the third problem really shines through of judging. And that is, we don't respect reality's relativity. This is perhaps the most nuanced and important reason that judgment is bad. And that is, when we judge reality in any way, we make a very devilishly subtle other statement. It should be different. And here's the tough pill to swallow. No, it should not be different. Why? Because it is what it is. Billions of years have led up to this moment. Stars forming and dying, life forms evolving and going extinct, humans developing, and colleges forming. And all of that has led to reality being exactly what it is in this moment. The tough pill to swallow is that reality is not here to serve our whims. It's completely impersonal. And then we come in and say that it shouldn't be this way or that, even though it literally couldn't be any other way. What we don't want to admit is reality is bad because it doesn't serve our selfish desires. We don't like bad grades because it potentially means we won't go down the career we want. We don't like mean people because they make us feel negative. We don't like cancer because it takes away our loved ones. And I know what you might be saying, Aiden, but cancer is bad. I understand. My grandfather passed away from pancreatic cancer. So it is a particularly sore spot for me. But even in this case, cancer is only bad on a relative level. It's bad for our own selfish want to have our loved ones. And so the insight is not in not seeing it as relatively negative. The insight is understanding exactly that, how relative our judgments are from our own selfish desires. This awareness power cannot be overstated, because the majority of human suffering throughout history has been from humans being selfish without realizing it. Don't fall for the same trap. And this problem with selfishness goes a level deeper, because judgment disrespects reality's relativity, especially in concerns to human development. For example, when I judged others for procrastinating, I didn't appreciate how that procrastination might be right for the season of life they're in. Maybe they have a friend group that is bonded through procrastination. And if they procrastinated less, they lose that friend group. Maybe they used to have a really bad relationship to work where they worked too much, like I did, and now they're procrastinating more on purpose to mend that relationship. The problem with our judgments of other is that it disrespects this relativity. It disrespects the development the person's going through. The interesting fact is that human development actually unfolds in patterns, predictable ones, over 7 different stages when it comes to college particularly. And I actually have a video on that up above if you want to check out the 7 stages of college freshman ego development. When we judge others, we disrespect these patterns. We don't appreciate how a person's entire life, the way that they relate to reality, is an adaptation to everything that they've gone through before. And so when we attach to these judgments, we're not able to see the other person clearly. We see them as we believe they should be rather than as they are. So the insight, again, is not that we don't help our friends change or we don't have evaluations of reality in order to navigate ourselves. The insight is to be respectful of how relative our judgments actually are. If we wanted to be realistic, every time we said you should do X or reality should be this way, we would say under X condition with Z experiences and Y constraints. Right? So in summation, attaching to judgments creates these three problems. It keeps us from true success, happiness, and love. It disappreciates how our self-judgments, our other judgments, are actually self-judgments. And it also disrespects reality's relativity, which leads us to the natural next question. Why the heck do we judge if it's so sucky? And the reason is really nuanced. It's because judgment works, at least in the way that energy drinks work. They don't nourish you, but they absolutely get you to do that assignment 5 minutes before the deadline and with fluorescent lighting. Judgment is one of the most reliable survival technologies that the human mind has ever created. It's a fast, blunt instrument for saying reality should be this way. Is reality okay? And if you're an elite college freshman, it's likely what you've used to get to the point that you've gotten to today. You studied hard, you worked hard in order to get here by saying not doing that is bad. So judgment motivates like crazy. If you label yourself as not good enough, you'll do almost anything to close the gap. This is gold, black hat, left brain motivations, if you use Octalysis lingo, where pressure, comparison, shame, fear of loss motivate us. And it's powerful because it's gotten where you are, but it's also expensive because in the long run, it leads to burnout, to a lack of control, to feeling non-agentic, to feeling negative. Now, that's the surface level reason. The profundity goes a level deeper because judgment is actually how our false self stays intact. The false self is the finite character you build to survive college. Your grades, your major, your identity, your type, your reputation, your body, your relationships, your future plans, all of that. You have to construct a stable me in order to navigate any other. So a freshman without a false self is kind of like a video game character without a UI. It's technically free, but also completely unable to play. The problem starts when you confuse the false self for your true self. Then every judgment becomes a defense mechanism. Judging others as lazy or shallow can be your false self propping up your own valuing of hard work. Judging yourself as behind can be your false self trying to shape you into the type of person that can be ahead. Every judging of reality, every this is how it should be, is often your false self creating a frame for its ideal world. It's your false self surviving itself. Again, judgment isn't evil, it's a frightened false self. It's the part of you that learned very early on that you were not enough, and once you've trained that habit for years, you don't stop judging because you watched one video about judgment or spirituality. That's where it's so important that you integrate and actionalize all of the ideas in here, which is what leads us to the last part of this video, which is the real question isn't how do I stop judging? The real question is how can we judge more mindfully? Again, the goal isn't to become some frictionless floating orb of non-judgment who smiles serenely while your group project dissolves into ash. The insight is to have opinions about your professor's feedback, your friends' texting habits, the fact that the dining hall food always serves pasta that is somehow dry and soggy at the same time. The shift is from surviving your false self to striving for your true self. Your true self, with a capital S, is your deepest nature. It's where you actually taste the fruits of true success, happiness, and love that you've been trying to harvest from external accolades rather than internal soil. So it doesn't reject your false self. It actually transcends and integrates it with warmth and with patience. Rooted in your true self, you tend to feel calmer, more creative, more compassionate, more courageous. And yet the road there is not a spa day, trust me. It is really hard. That's why I call it the conscious college journey, the journey from moving to the false self project to the true self project, to awakening to something that was inside of you all along and you simply had to become aware of. And the doorway to that journey starts from disattaching to judgment through 4 different shifts. Shift 1 is to move from judgment with a lowercase s to judgment with a capital S. Judgment with a lowercase s is evaluation fused with selfish blending. It's not just I prefer X, it's X is objectively good. And if I don't get X, something is wrong with me, them, or reality. Judgment with a capital J, on the other hand, is contextual discernment without that blending. You continue to evaluate because it's basically impossible not to, but you don't absolutize that evaluation as if it's written in the fabric of the universe itself. For example, wanting to work out is not, I suck, I need to work out, it is objectively good. It's for the season of life that I'm in, I want to work out so I can make myself feel better, work better in school, become more attractive because I want to, not because there's something inherently wrong with me, objectively in the reality. This version of motivation does not poison whatever it touches. It actually motivates more. The shift 2 is to notice the judge. You can't disattach from judgment if you don't even realize you're doing it, which is why one of the most powerful practices for disattaching from judgment is building your self-awareness by rooting in the witness. The witness is the awareness behind all of conscious experience. It's the being that watches you be. It is never witnessed itself because it is that which witnesses the witnessing. So as you're watching this video, you're rooted in self, witness, hopefully. And you can ask yourself, what is it saying as I'm talking right now? Oh, there it is again. And the second part of rooting in the witness, once you've done this, which I hope you're doing right now, is to accept whatever judgments come up without attachment. And if you resist the judgment or the acceptance, accept the resistance. It's very meta that way. Maybe you're not ready to accept it yet. One of the best ways to add on to this is to feel it in your body. Feel what judgment is like somatically. Often it's a tight jaw, tense shoulders, shallow breath, a contracted chest, a ruthless forward-leaning urgency, a subtle heat behind the eyes. That's what judgment feels like. So root more in the witness and really experience that happening to you so that you can get better at noticing when it comes up. The third shift is to understand what the judgment is protecting. Judgment is rarely random. It's usually grounded in something like a fear, a longing, a wound, a part of you that learned long ago that being worthy requires something. So when judgment shows up, do what I call reflective journaling. Or if you don't have a journal, just think about it. Ask yourself questions like, how is this judgment affecting me? Why is it affecting me that way? And where is it coming from? If you judge someone as too needy, is there a part of you terrified of needing anyone? If you judge someone as lazy, is there a part of you that thinks you're too lazy? If you judge yourself as behind, is there a part of you that believes in conditional love? This is what I mean when I say judgment is a mirror. It doesn't just point outward, it actually reveals the internal world. And the last shift, the most important, shift 4, is to reorient towards your true self. As you do this, you'll start to feel a strange, quiet shift. Judgments still arise, but they have less urgency, less oomph to them. Instead of asking, how do I control reality so I can finally be okay, you begin asking, how do I become okay so I can meet reality as it is? This is the beginning of the conscious college journey. Because the true self is not something you achieve after finally fixing your psychology and never getting triggered again. It's what's present when you judge. It's what's present in the aspiration to grow in the first place. So yes, judgment is a silent killer. It kills true success, happiness, and love. But judgment is also, it's strangely sacred, honestly, because every time it shows up, it shows you where you have to grow. And if you keep walking patiently, silently, imperfectly, judgment starts to change flavor. It becomes less like a hammer and more like information. Until one day, almost without even noticing it, you actually judge less. And in that moment, you might experience something beautiful, almost strangely simple. Reality is already whole. It always was whole. Not because it's pleasant, not because it's fair, not because it serves all of your selfish desires perfectly, but because what it is, unfolding, evolving, alive. And you're finally able to meet it without resistance. Because the story does not end when you stop judging. It ends when you start listening. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, you would love my free college freshman cosmic journaling kit. It's a gamified journaling system to help you grow your emotional intelligence, your self-understanding, and your purpose with over 1,000 journaling questions in just 15 minutes a day. It adds on to a lot of what we talked about in this video regarding judgment, so it's a great way to actionalize those insights. You can find that in the description below if it sounds good. As always, have a fantastic rest of your day. Eat some peanut butter, and bye-bye.